All right, we are live. We are here with Danny Burmawi. Did I pronounce it correctly? Yes, I did.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, Danny is expert in geopolitics in the Middle East, and you're also a fellow ex-Muslim. Is that correct?
That's true. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
so okay. Well, this is great. Ex-Muslims unite here. I'm an ex-Muslim as well.
Yeah. Infidels coming together.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. But I'm an ex-Muslim atheist. You're an ex-Muslim Christian. And I think that us being ex-Muslim is more of a unifying factor than whether or not we're atheist or Christian. I mean, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think one of the greatest forces right now against the world is Islam. And whether we're atheist, Christian, Jewish, or whatever, these disagreements matter a lot less compared to how important. You know how in Game of Thrones people are like fighting over the throne while there's a dead army coming and taking over the
Yeah.
world, and I feel like that's a kind of a similar situation. Do you think that is a accurate description, or am I exaggerating?
Well, whether you are an atheist or a Christian or a Jew, as a matter of fact, you have been shaped by um, one common ideology. What do I mean by that? The fact that you have the freedom to become an atheist. You have been given that freedom because of the Judeo-Christian framework that has evolved and developed over centuries, which it has within it self-correction. Christianity and Judaism is all about human agency. And through multiple cycles of self-correction, we have reached the enlightenment. Now, I'm not saying this only because I'm Christian. You can, for example, argue that the fruit of the enlightenment was our judicial system or human rights declaration, right? But you actually, without going back to Christianity and through that to Judaism, you can't get anywhere, because as Friedrich Nietzsche said, if you leave Christianity, you have to leave human rights with it. So, long story short, we are atheists, Christians, Jews, secular. We have all agreed on something called overlapping consciousness, which it's like we have something in common, that I'm going to respect your belief, you're going to respect my belief, and that's how we coexist, except Islam. Islam doesn't share that overlapping circle with any of the other groups. Islam has a totalizing vision that wants to impose on the rest of human beings. And that's why it's the most dangerous and common enemy for any non-Muslim.
Yeah. So, for example, back in the old days, I would come and disagree with you regarding what are the sources of these values are, right? But I don't care anymore right now. Right now I care about that we're fighting against Islam. So, I would try, because I do
Yeah,
disagree with you
that
for
was your
what.
point. Your point is, I'm not
Yeah,
going to fight
yeah,
against this, and
yeah.
no,
I'm not gonna. I'm
neither
not
do I.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
neither do
yeah.
I.
Because
Yeah.
we could like, what's the point? Like, you could say the source of these values are Christianity. I could say it's something else. But what's the point? Like, we are being like the enemies are at the gates. The point is that for whatever reason you have identified the enemy correctly and you agree with me and we are fighting the same enemy. So that's the important part. But before we actually get started, you are an expert in the Middle East. Can you tell me a little bit more about your background and what you do, and so that the audience are more familiar with you, become more familiar with you, with your work? By the way,
um,
guys, your Dan's social, Twitter, and website is, the link is in the description, so please go check them out. But yeah, go on.
yeah, thank you, Armin. So, yeah, as you said, I'm an ex-Muslim. I'm from Jordan, originally grew up in Jordan, and became devout Muslim for only 1 year in 2006 to 2007, where after the Danish cartoonist controversy, if you remember, the Danish cartoonist who drew the Prophet Muhammad. So I was emotionally charged by different imams, different sermons that I've heard at the time. So I decided to dedicate myself to serve Islam. And after 1 year, I left Islam. So it's long story short. I'm not going to dig into details here, but I left Jordan because it was not possible for me to practice my new faith in a country where you have 99% of the population following one religion, and that is Sunni Islam. So it was not safe for me to practice my faith there, especially that churches did not welcome me. Actually, a priest, when I first went to a church, a priest, he actually started yelling at me, and he kicked me out of the church. So I decided to leave Jordan. I went to Lebanon. In Lebanon, I lived for the next 15 years. I specialized in comparative theology, and I led a global, American global organization, Christian organization. I was the regional director of that organization in the Middle East. I worked across the Middle East in 8 different countries, and in Europe and in the United States. But I had to remain a very low profile for security reasons, being a former Muslim and at the same time trying to proselytize people to leave Islam was enough for me. So I couldn't really express my political views. However, when I moved to the United States in 2023, just 2 months before October 7, and then October 7 happened, and the response in the West was disastrous. What I witnessed was a complete submission to the Islamic narrative, not only of the Arab-Israeli conflict, but beyond that. It's the alignment between all of the Marxist, communist, radical leftist ideologies and Islam coming together, not because they agree theologically or any of that, but because they have a common enemy. So yes, the enemy, you're right, the enemy is Islam, and I'd like to see the enemy as ideas more than people. It's ideas that shape people, but there is this enemy cannot do anything in the West without the radical left. The leftists, they have this eternal role that they play. They pave the way for tyrants, and when tyrants take over, they get rid of the left. It happened everywhere. So Islam is going to
it happened in my country.
Yeah,
it happened in my country. In that's how we lost an entire country, and we have been fighting to get it back ever since. It's more than 40 years ago, Iran. I mean, a lot of people, it's so amazing how you describe it, because a lot of people are now realizing that this is something that happens. Islam, Islamism. I don't like to say Islamism because Islam and Islamism are the same thing, right? But Islam, people with an Islamic mindset, they become united with people who are leftist, and then once they're successful, the very same Muslims will turn on the leftists and eliminate them, because the leftists, they have the theory, they have the political know-how, but they don't have enough of the violence and the brute force. And the Islamic side has the brute force and the violence, so they complete each other. But then as soon as you don't need the political know-how and the organizational skills, the side that has the brute force and the violence removes the leftists because they don't need them anymore. And this is exactly the story.
It's not only because they don't have violence. Yeah, I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, not completely. And
it's not only because they don't know how to be violent. It's also because they always have to find grievance. They have to find narratives that fit their worldview in order to weaponize them. So this weaponization needed Islam. Islam is limitless reservoir of fury, a lot of victimhood. You know, the entire Islamic history is about victimhood. We are victims of Sunni are victims of Shia, Shia are victims of Sunni. The first caliphs, the four first caliphs were killed, except probably Abu Bakr, but Abu Bakr also, he was poisoned. So anyway, coming to the Ottoman Empire, and after that, the Western imperialism and the Arab-Israeli conflict, and everybody's plotting against Islam. We are, everybody's plotting against us. They hate Islam. So anyway, this fury, this grievance, this anger could be easily translated into violence. And by weaponizing Islam in the West, the left, as you said, they now have not only the ideology, but also the weapon. But they are delusional. They think that they can control Islam. They are making the same mistake that Bibi Netanyahu made when he thought he could weaponize Hamas in order to defeat the Palestinian Authority. He thought that he could contain Hamas, but that was a catastrophic mistake. And the Jewish people have paid a high price for it on October 7th.
Never work with Islamists, not even once. It always backfires. It always backfires. I think in history, every time we thought that, you know what, we will support him here and it will not go wrong, it always went wrong. Every time. I'm Iranian, and it's interesting that we're seeing a lot of these things happen in the West right now. But we used to have a king, Muhammad Reza Shah, and he, back more than 40 years ago, he was warning the entire world about it. Like, I mean, a lot of Americans started learning about what the hell, what's the idea, what's this marriage between leftists and Islamists? They cannot be any more different, but they are uniting. But we had that already. Our king told the whole world and he called it the unholy alliance between the black and red.
Or
and
green,
then
red, and
well, they're
colors.
black, because the Shias are black, right? Because our version of Islam is Shia.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so in Iran,
because
however,
today they call it a green-red alliance or red-green alliance.
Yes, and brown, by the way. Not actually good. That's a good segue because you mentioned about the leftists and the Islamists, but we also now have far right-leaning people taking positions against Israel. I mean, it's not now. They were always anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli, but now they're daring to. They used to be silent about it. What do you think about that? Because it's not just the leftists. We're seeing the attacks on Israel. Yeah.
I wrote an article about it. I think they are motivated by different reasons today. It's different than the past. There has been, I called it the oppression Olympic. They are competing, the far left and the far right, they are competing on who is more oppressed. Because you know that the far left, they have used all of the oppressed versus oppressor narrative and apply it everywhere. And the intersectionality, seeing all weak groups as equal. If you're weak, then you're oppressed, regardless of the context, regardless of the facts. If you are the weakest, then you are oppressed. And using that narrative, they have weaponized it against the white Christian males, right? So the white Christian males in the West have been alienated and marginalized for a very long time. So they felt that they needed their own version of oppression in order to weaponize it. So that's where the competition happened. Both the groups started like fighting each other, who's more oppressed, but they met when it comes to Israel. Both of them had to consider Israel as the oppressor, Of course, the left is seeing it from a different angle, but the right is looking at it. The far right, they could not say we stand with Israel or support Israel by any way or means, because if they do that, they lose points in the oppressed versus oppressor narrative, and they needed more points. I'm not sure if you're following my reasoning here. If they side with Israel, then they are siding with the oppressor in the far left narrative. So they had to say to the far left, you know what? Yes, Israel is the oppressor. We are oppressed too. We need you to admit that we have been oppressed. So now they're coming together, kind of. This is not a direct dialogue. They're not speaking to each other. It's just competition who is more oppressed, and at the same time aligning themselves together in seeing who is the oppressor and who is the oppressed, so that they could justify whatever narrative they are presenting to each other. I know this is like, it might feels very complicated, but I promise you, if you go to my Substack, read the Olympic oppression, or the oppression of Olympic, I try to articulate it in a better way.
So tell me, this is how I see it. You tell me if it's, what do you think about it, right? I think they're both just leaning into their historic narratives. So the far left looks at Israel as the extension of white imperialism and colonialism, and also they're powerful, they're richer, so therefore there must be the evil ones. The poor people are always the correct one, right? And then they look at, but the right-leaning people, they look at them and they're like, they're the Jews, they're the globalists, right? So the oppressors for the leftists are anything that is connected to the West or to white people or to rich people, to people who are prosperous. They are the oppressors. But to far right people, there's they always had the sense of the Jews are behind, like the Jews are behind everything. They are against globalism, and they think the Jews are behind globalism, and the Jews are controlling everything. So it's about the Jewness of it. It's not about the Western nature. I mean, in fact, it's the opposite, because the leftists think that we don't like you because you're Western, but the right-leaning people look at Israel and they hate them because you're anti-Western. You are not West. You're actually the enemy of the West. So
that's what I say. It's different reasons, but they reach the same conclusion. Now you're right that Israel is seen as a white colonialist Christian imperialist state, even though they're not Christians. But in the imagination of the left, it's incarnation of the Western imperialism. And when they say globalize the Intifada, what they're meaning by that is, we envy Hamas because by doing the Intifada they have hurt or damaged the oppressor, and we want to do the same. We want to hurt and break the oppressor. And who is the oppressor of the left? It's the Western governments, right? So when they say globalize the Intifada, what they're saying actually is, we want to use violence against the Western governments. And of course, they're using the excuse that the Western governments are supporting Israel, but that's not everything. That's only, they're utilizing this reason. But their problem or their issue with the Western governments is far greater than that. It goes back to everything about, Michael Foucault in his book, Discipline and Punish. In that book, he's a French writer. He is probably the most impactful writer on the critical theory. And in that book, he said that the government is programming us, the Western governments are programming people, they're discipling us, they're shaping us to be, to submit to them, to be obedient. So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that this theory is based in the perception that any power, any power system is the oppressor and must be dismantled.
Yep.
The Western governments are power systems that must be dismantled. The police is the tool of this power system, and that's why we need to defund the police. So that's why I say it's not anti-Semitism. When people keep saying, you know, they are anti-Semite, they don't really care about the Jews today. What they care about is attacking the Western governments, the Western civilization itself, because they believe it is the construct of power systems, and anything that was constructed by power must be dissolved, must be dismantled. Whether it was a divine power like religion, or a social power or a political power, whatever a power system decided is wrong. Male, female, that is a social construct that was imposed by power systems. So we don't agree with that. So anything, you get the idea. So it's crazy, it's ridiculous. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so among the three of them, the Islamists, the leftists, and the far right, I think the Islamists and the far right, it is about them being Jew, but for the leftists, it's about them being in power and having. And when they say Western, they actually mean powerful. That's what they mean. Which is they're just against
I absolutely
order.
agree with you. Yeah, the Muslims, their problem is religious hatred toward the Jews.
Right.
But they have mastered using the leftist language. Yeah. So, yeah, the social justice and all of that.
And now they're starting to learn right-leaning Western right-leaning language.
Oh yeah, they love Tucker Carlson today. Yeah, sure.
Yes, and they're starting to learn how to connect because they have learned how to change to find Islamic narratives that tries to match it with leftist arguments to find unity with the left. But now that the right-leaning people, they're noticing how much investment they could make into right-leaning people against Israel, they're also starting to adopt languages that, especially because they have family issues or anti-LGBT, and the idea that Jews are there to destroy the they think that they could work on that as well.
Antithetical to the left, so probably they lean more toward the right. One of the what you said is great, because one of the issues that they're trying to push, or one of the narratives they're trying to push, is this. Actually, before I tell you the narrative, let me tell you the reasoning behind it. So the Islamic countries, they have been trying to demonize Israel for a very long time, but they failed. They couldn't demonize Israel. Why? Because the evangelicals in America, they support Israel out of religious and theological reasons. And that's why all the Islamic countries' attempts have failed. Now they have a great opportunity to achieve that. And in order to do it, they are fracturing the relationship between the evangelicals and Israel. How do they do that? Through pushing narratives like Israel is responsible for the persecution of the Christians in the Middle East. Israel is behind taking down Saddam Hussein and the aftermath and what happened to the Christians in Iraq. Israel pushed and convinced the United States to do that. Israel collapsed the Syrian regime, which was protecting the minorities and Christians in particular, and that's why Israel is responsible for the persecution of Christians. The decline in the Christian numbers in the region is a direct result of Israel's establishment, the establishment of the state of Israel. So they're pushing these narratives, even though in reality, the only country in the region where Christians have been increasing in number is Israel. And everywhere else, they are decreasing in number.
It's a coin.
So now you have the far right who think that Israel is manipulating the United States. They hate AIPAC, and they falsely accuse America of pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into the Israeli economy. That's ridiculous. Israel's economy is very strong. And the United States, by the way, did not support Israel from the beginning. The United States started supporting Israel after 1967, after Israel defeated the Arab armies who were leaning toward communism. So Jamal Abdel Nasser is an example. So America saw an asset in Israel and wanted to invest in Israel to defeat the communism expansion in the Arab world. In 1948, President Truman, he banned weapon exportation to Israel. So it's not true that America has been supportive of Israel since the beginning. That's not true. But anyway,
they put sanctions on Israel at some point.
I don't remember that, but there was a ban, an embargo
over their attack on the Suez Canal. I think with the French, U.S. was not happy with that.
Probably you're right. Probably you're right. Yeah. So it's a very it's false narrative. It's not true. But anyway, now the Islamic countries, they're seeing in that narrative a way to fracture this relationship. And not only the far right, even the far left is using this. I'll tell you why. Who stood on the way of the advancement of the radical left ideologies in America? It was the evangelicals. It was the conservative. It was people who are who still hold to the fact that there is meaning. Not everything is relative. There are absolutes. So now, if you fracture the relationship between Israel and the evangelicals, those who are dissatisfied with Israel among the evangelical circles are not going to vote for pro-Israel politicians. They would choose other politicians to vote for who are anti-Israel. And who is anti-Israel? It's leftist or left-leaning politicians. So it's a genius plan. It's a genius plan for the advancement of the leftist ideology in America and the expansion of Islam in the West to destroy this relationship between the evangelicals and Israel. And this is not conspiracy theory. It is something that is happening every day. We can see it by all the false claims that being originating from different parties. For example, Candace Owens, she pushed this narrative that it was the Zionist movement who manufactured Christian Zionism by pouring money into the Scofield Bible, and the Rothschild family did that in order to manufacture Christian Zionism. That is ridiculous. Christian Zionism, which is based in dispensationalism, which is a theological school, it originated in the UK in the 17th century. The climax of that school was with John Darby in the 19th century, the beginning of the 19th century, And Christian Zionism was not born in the 20th century. That's not true at all. So by pushing these stories and by using Christ, Christ is king, Christ is king, they use a Christ in order to take a jab at the Jews. It's like, you don't believe in Christ. Your Talmud say that Christ is boiling in hell, and it's like, how many times I told you I'm an expert in theology, so I have been exposed to everything about Judaism, Christianity, Islam. So Jesus is barely mentioned in the Talmud a couple times or 3 times, while the Talmud is huge. It's a whole library. And
isn't the Talmud just rabbi commentary and not revelation anyways in Judaism?
Yeah, it's rabbi commentaries, debates about social life, traditions. It's a huge library. So I never read the entire Talmud. Anybody who probably claims that they read the Talmud is lying, because it's a huge library. But I know that Jesus was mentioned only a few times. Some of them are ambiguous. We don't even know if it's the same Yeshua. However, I don't care even if some rabbis are saying crazy things about Jesus. I'll tell you why. Because the Christians have massacred the Jews for 2,000 years. So they have the right to be mad at the person who hijacked their faith as they see him, and who is responsible for their persecution in the hands of Christians. So it's all right. No, why? I am a Christian. I love Jesus. I follow Christianity. I was ordained as a pastor at one point. I take my faith seriously. Yet, I'm not mad at the writers of the Talmud. If I'm mad, I'm mad more at Martin Luther. He's the reformer in the 16th century, and he's the pioneer of the Christian Reformation, who said that kill the Jews, burn their churches, force them out of their homes. Burn their synagogues. So I would expect better than that from Christians. So anyway, this is a deliberate attempt to destroy the relationship between the evangelicals. They want the evangelicals to stop supporting Israel in order to achieve all of these goals.
Right. I mean, to your point, I'm noticing a lot more investment in propaganda against Israel, leaning towards talking about how Israel is responsible for anti-Christian hatred. And I've seen it spreading everywhere. Like, it just all of a sudden in the past, like a few weeks ago, it just everyone, like Tucker Carlson, Anna Kasparian, like people that didn't used to have content about defending Christians. In fact, like they had the opposite of that. Like, and now they're talking about like, oh my God, save the Christians in Israel. Which is weird because the best place to be a Christian in the Middle East is in Israel. And the only place that the population of Christians have increased is in Israel. I mean, honestly, the best place to be an atheist in the Middle East is also Israel. But again,
it's the best place in the Middle East, period. On all levels.
Yes.
It's like,
Right,
why?
True.
Arabs, especially Arabs Christians, they are jealous of Israeli Arab Christians because
I know.
because they get to enjoy the liberty and to practice their faith without any restrictions, not like Christians in the Arab world. But yeah, it's like I wrote something on X. I said it's like The Walking Dead, the show. It's like, it doesn't matter how many dead zombies you kill, there are more. They're gonna keep showing up, and it's
Right.
the lies against Israel. And let me be honest with you. Many people accuse people like me or like you probably of being paid by AIPAC or the Mossad or
they're in the chat right now. The people right now in the chat, they're saying, okay.
So Here's the thing. I remind my followers every couple of days, please go and subscribe to my Substack and give me the $5 because I need them. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm paid by the Mossad. But I'll tell you something. When I started talking about the threat of Islam in the West, I had no plan to defend Israel. Zero. My goal was only to expose the threat of Islam as an ideology that has supremacy and has ambition to take over the world. However, I realized through the process of time that this civilizational conflict with Islam has been reduced to a binary conflict between Israel and Islam. Israel on behalf of the free world. Because, look at this. You have Israel. If you stand with Israel, then by default, you are standing against the threat of Islam. It's really simple. If you are against Israel, that's definitely going to make you on the side of Islam. Now, some people might say, no, F both of them. We don't care about Islam or Israel, leave us alone. Well, even if you think that you are neutral, you are not. Because the moment you are not defending Israel, it is that your silence is serving the other narrative that is serving Islam and pushing for its expansion in the West. So whether you like it or not, siding with Israel is an absolute necessity to protect the Western civilization. And when we say that Israel is fighting on behalf of the free world, we are not making a false claim. We are stating a fact. And as an ex-Muslim, I would say with confidence that in order to protect and defend the civilization that was born out of my current faith, because I believe that Christianity birthed or gave birth to the West, in order to protect the civilization from the damage that my former faith infected on my homeland, I need to stand with Israel.
I couldn't agree with you more. I just want to add something to it. But by the way, the way I see it, actually, let me just add to it and see if you agree. I think there are two nations right now. There are two people that are fighting against Islam, and one of them is Israel, and the other one is the Iranian people. As a Iran is the country that has had the greatest mass exodus of people out of a religion in the history of mankind, right? Like if you look at the polls, we see around half
I'm
of
shocked by the
Iranians have left
numbers.
this.
Yeah, if the numbers are true,
Yeah.
that's really shocking.
Or,
And yeah.
Yeah. A country of 90 million people has had half of the population in 40 years abandoning Islam, which is never we have had this many people in such a short amount of time abandoning. But it's not just that they're leaving Islam. It's not just that they're leaving Islam. The absolute hatred for Islam can be felt nowhere else more than in Iran right now because of what they're experiencing. And the interesting thing is that the bond between the Iranian people and Israeli people are growing very, very, very strong. And I think that to support the Iranian people is to support Israel. And to support Israel is to support the Iranian people, because I think they complete each other, because they both have the shared enemy, which is the Islamic Republic. And they both have something that the other side doesn't. The Iranian people are unarmed. Israel has the best weaponry, and they really know how to use it. But Israel doesn't have boots on the ground. It's not going to topple the Islamic Republic. What you need is to actually be present there to go and capture the government buildings and the bases. And Israel doesn't have enough manpower. They don't share a border with Iran. Iran is really big, really vast, and there's not enough Israeli soldiers to go and do such a thing. So
it's
there
not
needs to
only
be
that. There's no approval from the West, because the
right.
West is terrified of the Iraqi and the Afghani scenarios. They don't want to repeat it in Iran because As we have seen, they have invested a lot of resources in both countries, and they the humiliation, the disappointment was catastrophic. America had to withdraw from Afghanistan, and all the world got to see what happened then. And you look at Iraq and the sectarian fracture there. So they don't want to repeat that in Iran because they think it's going to happen. It's going to be the same. And to be honest with you, I've written something about that during the 12 Days War. I'm concerned that if Khamenei is overthrown, there probably is going to be another Hezbollah in Iran, a political party that emerged out of the Khamenei regime that's going to have the weapons and the people who have been indoctrinated over 40 years to kind of build a state within the state, even if the free Iranian people end up ruling their country. There's no guarantee that such a scenario is not going to happen. So,
yep, but there's a way. So right now in Iran, the vast majority of the Iranian people want secularism, right? Even Iranian Muslims, if you look at the polls, they want secularism. They don't want religion in their government, right? So that means that the vast majority of them are against the Islamic Republic. But the thing that you are worried about is something that a lot of Iranian people who want to topple the regime are worried about as well. They call it pustandazi, which means changing the skin, meaning that the Islamic Republic will go, but another version of the Islamic Republic will come in its return, pretend that it's something else, but it's the same. So we call it the Third Republic. The First Republic was Khomeini's Republic. The Second Republic was Khamenei's Republic. So Iranian people are worried about toppling the regime and just having a third version of the Islamic Republic come into power, right? And many Iranian people think the way to avoid that is to back Reza Pahlavi. So I don't know how familiar you are with Reza
listen,
Pahlavi.
It doesn't really matter. They don't have to rule the country. They don't have to take the leadership in the country. No, they only need to be like Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah was not ruling Lebanon, but Hezbollah was powerful enough to discredit the leadership, the president, and the Lebanese presidency and legitimacy. And that's how they have destroyed Lebanon over 35 years. So if such a party emerged in Iran, even if Reza Pahlavi is the president, it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to start a civil war? And
well, the difference is that when Hezbollah came into power in Lebanon, there was a lot of support for Hezbollah in Lebanon, right? But right now in Iran, if the Islamic Republic falls, the idea of having anything Islamic in the government is unthinkable. Like if the
Armin,
people
I want to agree with you, but let me ask you a question. I hate to disagree with you, but do you think there is there's only 1 million people who are ideologically in alignment with the Khamenei regime? Only 1 million.
Yeah, there's more than that. I think there's 6%, which is more than 1 million.
I think that is more than enough to destabilize any version of a secular Iran that we could imagine.
I think what that will create is not a Hezbollah. It will what that would create is a Daesh, a Shia version of Daesh. Because they're not going to be able to form a party, because if we create a democratic structure, they're not going to be able to participate in the government. The thing that you're describing is a huge terroristic, destabilizing group of people that will not put down their arm, that we have to deal with, right? And that is a worry, but I think that is much better than what we have right now, right? Because if we have a secular government, because during Mohammad Reza Shah was working with Mossad. Israel had Mossad, Iran had Savak, and Mossad and Savak worked with each other to fight these Islamists, right? And I think that yeah, what you're saying is not ideal, but it's better than having the Islamic Republic in power. Having a secular government that is trying to deal with the terrorists internally, destabilizing, which will have to.
Scary to the West. I'm not arguing in favor of this scenario. I'm just saying that it's very terrifying to the West, to the Western governments, because it's going to impact the oil prices. Is going to create a lot of geopolitics problem that the West don't need now. Because if you see, yeah, go ahead.
It's not going to affect oil prices because there's even right now, not much oil is coming out of Iran, right? And Saudi Arabia has signaled that if we have more instability with the Islamic Republic, they're willing to come and increase their oil production. And right now, if you see right now, because of the United States producing a lot of oil and because of alternative energy, the Islamic Republic, the stability with the Islamic Republic does not have as much of effect on oil prices as it had before, right? They're not right now because of all the sanctions. They're not even bringing much oil out of Iran anyway, so it's not going to have much of an impact.
But
and even if the West doesn't like it, the point is that Israel cannot afford to lose this opportunity. Because for United States, this might be like, oh, something inconvenient, but for Israel, this is a existential crisis. This is the Islamic Republic has never been this weak, and for Israel, this is the life of its civilians, not just their economic prosperity.
Yeah, but
so
Israel
even
is
if the West
fighting on
doesn't like
multiple fronts. And
right,
and you said it, Israel cannot afford to take down the Khamenei regime by itself. So if for anything to happen, we need the Iranian people to act. Right. And that's why there has been a lot of criticism toward the Iranian people during the 12 Days War, because they did not act. They did not do anything. So
they can't act during the war. During the war, people cannot come out into the streets during the war, right? And here's the thing. So, right, when like the Israel's message to Iranian people during the 12-day war was to leave the city, avoid not to come out into the streets, right? So
not even after that.
War,
I'm not talking about certain time frame. I'm just saying that when the regime was expected to fall, and the world was looking to the Iranian people to do something, and they didn't do anything, that actually has empowered the regime narrative, right?
That's unfair, because the Iranian people have came out multiple times, and they have paid a huge price for it every time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
So
no, let me tell you this. I'm not arguing, like, I'm not saying these arguments as if I believe them. I used to live in Lebanon. I'll tell you this. I used to live in Lebanon, and I have witnessed with my own eyes how Hezbollah, which is not a majority, Hezbollah had 100,000 fighters, but at least we had 4 million Lebanese who didn't want Hezbollah to remain as as a force that is destroying Lebanon, but they couldn't do anything. I have seen it with my own eyes. They were not able to take down Hezbollah because it's so complicated that what are you going to do? If you go out to the streets, how are you going to achieve that? You can't. So sometimes you run out of options. And I believe sincerely that the Iranian people, the Iranian free people who wants to take down Khamenei, they ran out of options. They don't know what to do. I'm not saying that they failed to act. No, I'm just repeating why the West is not acting.
Right. Well, let me tell you how I could see this happen. Right, because after the 12-day war, when people came to the street to see if they could protest, right now the Islamic Republic has mastered the art of suppressing people. As soon as the first people come out, the Islamic Republic figures out that there's going to be protests, and when you come to the streets, you see a lot of riot police, a lot of tanks, a lot of armored weapons, and then you see the number of soldiers with gear is more than the number of people walking in the streets, and it becomes so overwhelming. And as soon as the first person that chants everything, they're just going to be absolutely crushed and eliminated.
Yeah.
And it's impossible. So this is but the opportunity right now is there. First of all, Israel is fighting on 7 different fronts, but it doesn't have to, because all of these fronts are connected to the Islamic Republic. Without the Islamic Republic, Israel could stop actually fighting this much, because all of the sources, I mean, they will still continue to fight, but I think it would be much less. I mean, without
the green light from the West, nothing is going to happen. Israel is not going to act, because sometimes people think that Israel is this Superman, it can do whatever it wants. That's not true. They have to abide by certain.
I think this time they're going to get the green light. During the 12-day war, Trump stopped Israel. Yeah, but right now I think that Trump is losing patience with the Islamic Republic, and also he's getting a little bit away from the isolationists and closer to a little bit to the neocons. So I think the next time, I think they're going to get the green light from Trump. But everything is very ideal, because right now the Islamic Republic is so weak, and I follow their politics, the internal politics of the Islamic Republic daily, and the infighting among them is destroying them from inside. And the Iranian people are also in the best situation, because right now they have a leader in Reza Pahlavi, and they are a lot more organized. And they're a lot more united than before under the leadership of Reza Pahlavi. But again, when it comes to Israel's involvement, yes, the Iranian people need to do the final push, and it's to be their decision. But if Israel comes back in and takes out Khamenei, and at the end of the 12-day war, Israel was targeting all the specific people and the specific institution and the specific buildings responsible for suppressing people, which shows that Israel's calculation is that if I weaken the suppressing arm of the Islamic Republic, then I could allow the Iranian people to do the work. So yeah, the Iranian people cannot take these people out, but Israel can, and Israel could just basically make it easier for the Iranian people whenever the next wave of
Israel is under a lot of pressure since October 7, as you can see.
Yeah.
So it's not really that easy for a nation like Israel to make such a huge step toward.
They have to. But they have was the plan. That was the specific plan of the 12-day war.
They're trying to achieve something with Lebanon through diplomatic channels, even though we're talking about a small party called Hezbollah, not the huge Iranian regime. And Israel still.
But they have been successful with Hezbollah.
But they have been successful, but Hezbollah still have weapons, and Hezbollah still can.
But I'm not talking about. But we don't have to be absolute. Like, we don't have to want the absolute. As long as we make the situation is never going to be 100% ideal. Obviously, even if we make progress, we're going to have to deal with something at the time. But obviously, the situation in Lebanon is so much better right now with a weakened Hezbollah. So in Iran, yes. Even after the Islamic Republic falls, is the situation going to be ideal? No. But is Israel going to become a much, 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 much safer place with that Islamic Republic in power? Of course.
What if there is a fear of the Syrian scenario, where Bashar al-Assad lasted for 14 years against all the forces that tried to take him down? What if the Iranian regime, if Israel acted, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm actually not very concerned with the Iranian issue, because I'm focusing more on the West these days. Even Lebanon, I stopped talking about the Middle East. But the fear is, what if the Iranian regime has the resources to fight for 10, 15 years? And how many millions Iranian is the regime willing to sacrifice on the altar of preserving their destiny? So, or their survival.
Less than before.
So it's, I'm not arguing against your reasoning, but the problem is there are many different players here, and each one of these players have their own concerns and interests and pressure, and that's why nobody is moving forward with you know, because you also
So,
have Russia, you have China, you have
so let
a
me
lot of,
answer.
yeah.
Let me answer. Let me know what you think. Okay. First of all, this is, I think, about the West, because Israel is standing between the enemies on the West and the West, right? And Israel is paying the heavy price that the rest of the world is not willing to pay. And Israel is alone. Many times it's alone. And in the region, the Iranian people are in support of Israel, right? So, and I think that helping Israel defeats its main enemy, because the main enemy of Israel is not Hamas, is not Hezbollah, is not the Houthis, is not Kataeb, is not Hashishabi, is not the Zainabiyun, it's not the Fatimiyun. The main enemy of Israel is the Islamic Republic, right? So helping the Iranian people is helping Israel fight the West, the enemies of the West. So it's basically Israel is standing on the gates, and these are the people who are trying to get rid of Israel because they have a plan to create an Islamic empire in the Middle East to turn that into a bloc against the Western power. Their goal is not Israel. The goal is the West. Israel is just standing in the way. So I think this is about the West, right? And when it comes to what if this takes 14 years, I think, what if it takes, yeah, maybe that it takes 14 years, but it's better than 40 years. I mean, Assad is actually a good example. Yeah, Assad took 14 years, but Assad fell. But if we didn't take actions against Assad, Assad would still be in power. 14 years is a small price to pay compared to what it could have been if Assad was still in power. I mean, the French Revolution, after the French Revolution, everything got turned into crap. Like we had bloodbath, and we
Yeah.
didn't get democracy. But nobody could argue right now that the French Revolution was a failure. But it took a long time for it to show the results of its failure, right? The results
No,
of
I,
its success.
I absolutely agree
But
with you. I agree with you, but the logistics is very difficult to figure out. So, but yeah, I agree with you.
yeah, but it has always been difficult. But Israel has always done the necessary work to get rid of its enemies, even when the logistics was difficult, right? Israel has, throughout its history, has always done what is necessary, even when the decisions were difficult to make. And even if it's difficult, it has never been this. It's still difficult, but it has never been this easy, because the Islamic Republic has never been this weak. So I think solving a huge portion of the world's problem come from Tehran. And I think if we want to fix the West, we need to look at the source, and one of the main sources are in Tehran, and Israel is fighting the fight, and we just need to help Israel and the Iranian people do. If the West is not going to get involved, just at least maybe we should guide the West to just stay out of the way, at least, because the Iranian people and the Israeli people know what needs to be done. So if the West is not going to help, at least maybe they should, get out of the way.
Well, that's another thing. The West cannot get out of the way because all of the interest and calculations each state has. So I'm not trying to draw a very pessimistic image here. No, I'm sorry. I'm being very.
No, that's okay.
It's like
I like your
I don't want to
challenges.
be disappointing, but yeah, it's really it's something that when you wrap your mind around, you discover that there's other areas or other ground to cover. It's like, what about
Right.
this? What about that? What about what's going to happen here? What if? What if? What if? So, as analysts or observers, it's not for us to come up with a comprehensive plan because we are unaware of all the factors that are being considered by each player. So the way you see it, it's great. It's the right window. It's the right time. It's time to act now. But someone else is seeing it from a different angle. I don't know what that angle, but I have learned in life that there's always something called option C. And option C is the option that I cannot see. I only can see A and B. But C is something that I'm not aware of. And therefore, I'm going to assume that since I don't have the full picture, my comprehension of the situation is going to be always is going to always short or fall short, and that's why I have to be humble enough
Okay.
to give my
Yeah.
opinion. But yeah,
No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes, I'm in favor of skepticism. However, whatever the options are, A, B, C, all the way to Z, there might be even more than C, right? Would you agree that on average, because we never know what could happen, right? We could only come up with, look at history and see what has had the highest likelihood, not 100%, not for sure, but what gives us the highest likelihood of a good result has often been supporting the forces that are fighting for the right methods, the right values, the right way of life. And would you agree with that? Like, I don't, yeah,
oh yeah,
we don't know.
absolutely.
It's A,
I
B, I'm not, okay. Right.
look at us, look at me, and look
Yes.
at you. We're risking our lives to tell the
Right.
truth. So, what do you
Right.
think?
So,
I am
right.
always in favor of standing up and fighting with whatever means we have, in order to push back against that forces of tyranny.
So,
So, yeah, I
okay.
agree with you. I'm just
So,
analyzing the
yes.
potential scenarios. That's it.
Yeah, I agree with you that, the scenarios are, we could analyze the potential scenarios and also accept that there's so many scenarios that we cannot see. What I'm arguing is that in the same way that we recognize that the correct position right now is to support Israel because Israel is taking the correct stance, I think that the Iranian people and Reza Pahlavi, they are taking the correct stance as well. Reza Pahlavi is an ally of Israel. He's an ally of the West. He wants secular democracy for the Iranian people. He's anti an Islamic government, and he's taking all the positions that are in line with what I think you might refer to Western values.
Mhm.
So whatever the scenarios are, the ones that we can see and the ones that we cannot see, supporting him and the Iranian people's fight against their Islamic government is probably the right move to make, whatever the scenarios are, whatever happens in the future. Would you agree with that?
I agree. I absolutely agree. I really listen. I want to see Reza Pahlavi as the president of Iran. I could
King.
imagine the
Yeah.
prosperity. I could imagine the stability. I could imagine the progress. The seeing the Iranian people going back to the golden age of Iran, and this is like something amazing, right? But
Yes.
so hopefully, I listen. I pray for the Iranian people. I pray for the Lebanese. I pray for even Muslims who are victims of Islam. I
Mm,
want the end goals. Like, what is my motivation to do what I do? Am I driven by hatred and anger and indignation, or am I driven by love and hope? Now, of
mm,
course, when you criticize Islam and you talk about all the horrible stuff that Muhammad has done and the Quran says, people wouldn't believe you. They will be like, no, this is hateful, bigotry, the language doesn't
mm,
fit. But to be honest, I'm driven by love. I'm driven by
mm,
hope. As someone who appreciates freedom, as someone who breathes freedom like air, I can't imagine living without it. And at the same
mm,
time, I'm looking at millions and millions of Muslims who have never experienced it because of the ideology of death they follow and the slave mentality that Islam built in you. So
mm,
that's what motivates me. That's why I do what I do, because they want. Now, you ask me, but okay, you're not talking to Muslims. Today, you're educating the West about the threat of Islam. Of course, because as long as the West stands, we will have the freedom to dismantle Islam. But if the West falls, if they are successful in um, imposing hate speech rules or laws, Islamophobia,
mm.
and we will be silenced, then we will not be able to criticize Islam, and as a result, Muslims will not be
Right.
helped.
Well, you're fighting Islam in the West, and that's admirable. The reason why I keep saying Iran, 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 and you might think like, we have to save the West. I mean, we do, but the reason why I keep mentioning Iran and the Iranian people is because the Iranian people are winning against Islam, right? And if you are concerned about Islam coming and taking over and spreading, well, I think the solution is go to the source, and the source is in the Middle East, and you could see who's fighting Islam in the Middle East, and the answer is Israel and the Iranian people, right? The Iranian people. So that's why
I'm not really surprised at all by bringing Iran back with every point, because it makes sense. Listen, if the Iranian scenario end up to be different than the Iraqi scenario, we ended up with prosperity and real progress. And that is more likely because the Iranians are different than the Iraqis. Then that experiment is going to be a huge incentive to the rest of the world to carry it on in different nations. So, so I know this might sound like war mongering and fear mongering and things like that.
No.
It's actually not to you, to other people, to critics who might think, oh, this guy wants to see the West toppling every regime in the world. No, it's not like that. But I mean, if the experience is successful, that's a huge, and I believe it is.
I think the results that you make it from Iran is more like what you got from Germany after the Nazis fall, and after Japan after their regime change in World War II. However, I also want to add something. I don't think Iraq was a failure. I think people are just focusing on too short of a time horizon to look at Iraq. First of all, toppling Saddam, I think, was not a mistake. I think the only reason why it turned chaotic was because they got rid of the Ba'ath Party and they removed everybody. They created a power vacuum. I think the politics after it was a mistake. The removal of Saddam was done correctly, but the basically dismantling the Ba'ath Party and basically not allowing anybody from the Ba'ath Party to take part in the government created a power vacuum that caused chaos. But even with that chaos, Iraq is today a better place than Iraq under Saddam, right? Even, so I think people
I'm not sure if I agree with that. I'm not sure if I agree with that, because I think that any Islamic country, if you have real Muslims in it, that needs a dictator in order to keep it stable and keep the violence and the destruction from leaking into other countries. Saddam Hussein managed that, even though he was dictator, even though he fought Iran and he fought Kuwait. But after his fall, we have seen the emergence of all the sectarian groups. The Shia, for the first time, they are restoring sovereignty as the majority, and the Sunnis losing the sovereignty ended up creating Al-Qaeda in Iraq and Daesh or ISIS in Iraq. So, and the same thing about Syria. After the fall of Al-Assad, we ended up with an ISIS regime. So you might disagree with this, but I believe a dictator in an Islamic country is much better. And I'm not talking about Iran. Iran is different because, as I said, the numbers and the people that I have never met an Iranian who's not against Islam. It's like I'm talking real Iranian. So it's different. It's like, tell me, how many times have you met Iraqis who are against Islam or Syrians? None. But it's like few individuals. But in Iran, it's, as you said, it's mass migration out of Islam.
Let me push back against, and then I know I'm taking so much of your time. Let me push back against that, and then we'll go to the super chats. Okay. So to see if there anything you want to respond to. But Iraq, Saddam was a threat to Israel. So Saddam bombed Israel. Saddam was a threat to Israel in a way that
it's not always about Israel. I don't want to sound like anybody who is against Israel, then he is advancing Islamic agenda. I'm not defending Saddam. Please understand me. I'm not defending Saddam, and I'm not saying that Go on. I'm sorry. I'm going to respond after you
No,
finish.
no. You go ahead. You go. You finish.
Yeah,
your point
just to Saddam was a disaster, not only for Israel but for the Iraqi people, for Iran, for Kuwait, for everybody. Okay, and if he was not taken down, probably could have done more damage to other countries. But my argument here is very simple. If you have a Muslim majority country, you really have few options in order to rule this country without destroying it. Number one, you become an Islamic leader, like Al-Julani, or like where we had in history, we have other examples. Now, the Muslim majority are going, they're not going to revolt against you. Why? Because you represent Islam. You represent the highest authority ever. Even in Egypt after 2011, the Egyptian people who revolted against the Muslim Brotherhood, they have been incentivized by the Egyptian army, who is like an octopus, bleeding everything and ruling everything. It's a different scenario. But anyway, the other option you have is to be semi-secular, right? Like the King of Jordan, like different leaders in the Arab world. But you have to let the religious clerics rule or control the country from within, on the condition that they don't interfere with foreign policy.
So,
did you get this point? It's like,
I think that your point is that because people are Islamically minded, they need somebody to control them and look after them, right?
So you have to be an Islamic caliph, or but because this point is important, a dictator, an Islamic caliph, or if you are not going to be either, then you have to be semi-secular, but you have really to give all authority to the Muslim cleric to control education and culture and all of that.
I think that's just delaying the inevitable. I think the main thing. I think the way to fight Islamism is to just mix them interacting with the West, bringing their culture, bringing the education, and dictator is not going to allow that. I think a dictator might make a country that is getting more Islamic look like it's stable, but it will eventually explode and it will make a mess, and it will just delay that instead of fixing that. And I think every time you open the lid, you're going to see some chaos when a country is Islamic, and you think that was a bad idea. But if you actually lit the lid on and delayed it, actually you're going to see a bigger explosion sometime down the road. So I think removing the lid sooner, even though it's going to be chaotic at the beginning, it might make sense. And also to your point that
I like that theory. I'm going to entertain it in the following days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and also I think that with Iraq, it's true that because of the fall of Saddam, the Shias managed to come in, the Islamic Republic, and create a Shia, the crescent and the proxies. But the thing is, look, it's all gone now. right. So I mean, it seemed like a bad idea because the vacuum gave the Islamic Republic room to come in and take advantage. But look, after October 7th, how easy it was for Israel to actually come and dismantle.
But now a new force is filling the vacuum, and that is the Turkish ambition caliphate and the Saudi
but every time it's going to be weaker than the one before it. Like I'm saying, it's what came after, like ISIS and everything. Yes, sure, they were really messy. It caused a lot of damage and tragedy, right? But it's not as stable as Saddam, and it will eventually whimper away. And whatever comes in replace, the thing is that I think when it comes to people like dictators and people that are actively a threat to the West and to the the order that we have around the world, fighting them is often a good idea. And it's obviously every time you're going to pay a price for it, for removing them, obviously. But again, I think the benefits outweigh the cost on average. But maybe I'm wrong. But I think
I'm not going to argue against that. No, I'm not going to argue against that. I even though I was more concerned all of my life, I'm more concerned with the intellectual, ideological side of things. I'm not really concerned at all with military side of any conflict. But I'm not going to argue against that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me just quickly. Are you okay with me reading the super chats really quickly?
Yeah, it's like in 10, if we are spend extra more 10 more minutes, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it under 5. Okay, so Dakini, thank you so much for becoming a member. And then we have so look, you can see I'm Zionist funded because Ginga just gave me 15 shekels from Israel. So people keep accusing me of being Zionist funded. I'm like,
Oh,
this is not an
that's the
accusation. It's
shekel.
true.
That's the shekel sign. I've never seen it in my
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought it's an
Yeah,
Indian
so I am
currency.
Zionist funded. For
Yeah.
so many years, I used to get accused of being Zionist funded, and now it's true. So I'm honored. Ginga is saying Christian nationalists believe that Judeo-Christian value is psyop because Jews reject Jesus Christ to
Yeah.
make Christian sympathetic to
Sympathetic
the
to the
Jews. Your comments. Yeah.
Well, I don't care about what the Christian nationalists say. I care about that without Judaism, we don't have Christianity. We cannot have Christianity. Christianity without its Jewish roots collapses. The gospel collapses. Jesus becomes a character that has no depth at all. So Judeo-Christians is a real term. It was not manufactured to serve an agenda. It is the reality of things. It's Judeo-Christians because Christianity is rooted in Judaism. And if all the values that we have today, which has been cloaked with secular language, they are rooted in the biblical narrative, whether in the Jewish scripture or the Christian scripture. But again, without the Jewish scripture and the Jewish history and the Jewish imagination, we don't have a Christianity. Jesus was a Jewish rabbi, and Jesus, he revealed the meaning, the deep meaning of the Jewish law and prophets and writings. He did not come up with new laws or new moral framework. No, Jesus was actually just explaining and providing an interpretation to the Jewish scripture. And that's why we call it Judeo-Christians. And if Christians want to, if they want to take Jesus out of his Jewish roots, then they will end up with a pagan religion that has no depth in the monotheistic revolutionary vision of Judaism.
Okay, short answer so we could keep it under 5 minutes. Okay, so we have KD Meter just gave us 5 memberships to the people in the chat. Well, thank you so much for that. And then we have, what is it? Pazzi saying, both of you are such gems. Excellent interview. Well, thank you so much for that. And then Shana was saying, there's also the issue of the right of feeling like they're being blamed for what Jews actually did, not us, as well as some weird sexual jealousy. Whoa, what is that referring to? Do you know what she's talking about?
Actually, I was going to ask you what do you think she meant by this question. There's also the issue on the right of feeling like they're being blamed for what Jews actually did. Oh yeah, I think I get it. So yeah, the far right, because America is being blamed for supporting Israel, and this blame is exploding around the world. So they are trying to distance themselves from Israel so that they can protect America and just focus on America first. It's a reasonable argument, and people have the right to feel this way, for sure. Yeah, they have the right to feel like,
so
okay,
basically saying, please don't blame us, it's not us, it's them. That's what it means. Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, my answer to them would be like, you are going to be blamed whether you participate or not, because you are the target, you idiot. That's my response to them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's a good response. Flying Robot Duck saying, I never seen Flying Robot Duck is saying, I never seem to hear far-right anti-Israel Christians cover massacre of Christians by Islamists. Oh yeah, have you seen that? Like, is that like I've seen that bias as well?
It's
Like
weakened their argument
they,
against Israel, so that's why they don't want to cover it.
yeah,
It proves that
no,
they should be focusing on other things, but they are not doing
yeah,
that. So it's a condemnation against them. So in
right.
order to avoid that condemnation, they just ignore it.
Yeah, there's a saying that we say on this channel that you must have heard it. They say, "No Jews, no news." Have you
Oh
heard
yeah,
that?
sure,
No Jews.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah.
The
People
whole
keep
the whole
okay,
Palestinian thing, by the way, without if it was not between Arabs and Jews, if it was between Arabs and different ethnicity,
right,
no one would have ever heard of it. Never.
right. Or they would support it. I mean, imagine if a group of people did what they did on October 7th to Israel, but for example, let's say to France, right? The entire world would be united to just
Oh
completely
yeah.
eradicate those group
Oh
of
yeah,
people.
sure. Sure. Yeah.
Right.
There's
Right.
no doubt about that.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Len gave us 5 memberships, so thank you. And also Carl gave us a super sticker. Thank you. And here's a last question by Shana, or comment saying, Shana saying, there's also the issue that Catholics have picked up numbers, whereas the evangelicals have been losing numbers. I don't see evangelicals changing their support, but they're losing members to trans. What do you think about that? Does that make sense for you?
I've heard of a lot of evangelicals converting to Catholicism, or I'm not sure if she's referring to this in particular,
Mm.
but yeah, evangelicals. It's easier for evangelicals to love Israel and support Israel more than Catholics. That's for sure, because of dispensational theology. But I always say this to
Oh.
Christians all around the world. I tell them, don't base your support of Israel in theology, because I could theologically argue against that position. If you are, there
Mm.
are different schools of thought in Christianity, one called amillennialism, one called postmillennialism, premillennialism. So each one has a different apocalyptic vision of the word, and that make them relate to Israel differently. So I don't want people to be incentivized by theology to support Israel, because that's ridiculous. You want to support Israel because you believe it's the right thing, not because, oh, Israel has a role to play in the end days and the end times, so I'm going to side with Israel. That's weak. That's deceptive. No, support Israel because you believe it's based on historical facts, based on ideological exploration, that, oh yeah, Israel is the oppressed side in this narrative. It's not the oppressor. If you don't see it that way, then don't support Israel. So that's my advice to the Catholics or to the evangelicals. Don't support Israel because your pastor or your priest told you so. No, support Israel because you believe it's fighting a just war. Yeah.
Right. And we're gonna last super chat. Elad is saying no one hears about the Corsican separatists anymore. Is that in Spain? I don't even know what it is.
No, me too.
Um,
Maybe if it's in English, I could remember the term.
yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, thank you
All
for
right.
that super chat. Anyways, guys, we're gonna end the stream now. Thank you so much, Dan. Really great. That was
Armin,
really
thank you so
interesting.
much.
I learned
Really
so much
enjoyed
from
this.
you.
I enjoyed this
Yeah,
so
me too.
much. Yeah.
All
And
right, and guys, please make sure you follow Dan. I put his website in the description and also his Twitter, so please go check it out. And yeah, and
thank
also
you.
Dan, I'm going to cut pieces of this and put it on Twitter. So
Yeah.
please make sure that you retweet them when you see them. Right?
I will definitely
Yeah.
definitely would do that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Armin. Looking
well,
forward
thank you, and also
to
thank you
have
for
this conversation again.
All right, and stay. And when I end the streams, just leave it on until all the file gets uploaded, and we'll get you back on another show again. So you said another conversation at some point, okay?
Hopefully, yeah. So can I leave now?
Looking forward to it. Yes, of course. Yes, I'm going to end the stream, guys. All right, guys.
You.
And also thank you, Les, for the super chat. Bye, guys.